Marcus Steele Harrison never imagined that a routine ride home would turn into the most emotional night of his life. Out of the crowd came a small girl trembling, crying, refusing to let him leave. At first he thought she was lost, but when she began pulling him urgently toward the alley, the biker sensed something was terribly wrong. What he discovered hidden in the darkness left him breathless. A heartbreaking fight for survival. A mother's silent plea and a determination so pure it would bring him to his knees. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a miracle in disguise. The sun hung low over the city skyline, casting long amber shadows across the grimy streets of the industrial district. The biker adjusted his leather vest as he kicked down the stand on his Harley. It had been a long day at the auto shop. Nothing but oil changes and brake jobs. He exhaled deeply, ready to head back to his apartment after hours of wrenching on stubborn engines. But just as he turned the ignition key, something caught his attention. A small figure moving between the evening crowd. From the edge of the sidewalk, a tiny form appeared. A girl no more than 8 years old with tangled dark hair and eyes that glistened with unshed tears. Her clothes were worn and dirty, her face smudged with grime. The biker froze. Kids weren't a common sight in this part of town at dusk, especially not wandering alone. He killed the engine and swung his leg off the bike, his boots hitting the pavement with a heavy thud. "Hey, kiddo!" he called out, his voice gravelly but cautious. "You okay? Where's your folks?" To his surprise, the child didn't run. Instead, she walked straight toward him, her small frame trembling. She stopped just a few feet away and let out the softest whimper. Something about that sound made his chest tighten. It was the sound of pure desperation. He crouched down to her level, his bearded face trying its best to look non-threatening. "Where are your parents, little one?" Before he could say more, the girl spun around and took several hurried steps toward a dark alley, then stopped, looking back. She reached out her tiny hand and tugged at his vest with surprising urgency. Then she pulled harder, her small voice breaking through. "Please help! Mama needs help! Please!" Those words hit the biker like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a lost child. This little girl desperately needed something, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he felt compelled to follow. "All right," he said softly, "show me where." The child grabbed his hand with both of hers, pulling with all her tiny strength. They moved past shuttered storefronts and graffiti-covered walls deeper into the warehouse district. The girl moved with confidence, never hesitating. She'd made this journey before, he realized, many times. They approached a narrow alley between two crumbling warehouses. The biker hesitated at the darkness, every instinct screaming caution. "In there?" he asked. She nodded frantically, tears streaming down her dirty cheeks. "Mama, she's sick. She won't wake up right." His heart dropped. He pulled out his phone, turning on the flashlight, and stepped into the alley. The beam revealed scattered debris and the stench of human desperation. The girl moved ahead, navigating obstacles with practiced ease. Then he heard it, a weak cough followed by a labored, rattling breath. His pulse quickened as the flashlight beam swept across a pile of blankets and cardboard boxes arranged into a crude shelter. "Hello!" the biker called out. The girl dropped to her knees beside the shelter, frantically pulling back a filthy blanket. "Mama, I brought help. I brought someone good, just like you said." The biker stepped closer, his light falling on what lay beneath. His breath caught. A woman lay there, rail thin, her skin pale as moonlight. Her lips were cracked and bleeding, her hair matted. She was young, maybe late 20s, though hardship had aged her. This wasn't just homelessness. This was someone at death's door. The woman's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. When her gaze found her daughter's face, something shifted. A flicker of desperate maternal love. Her cracked lips moved, but only a weak wheeze escaped. The child pressed herself against her mother's side, patting her face frantically. "Mama, wake up! Please wake up!" The biker knelt down, bringing himself closer. The woman's breathing came in short, rattling gasps. He touched her forehead. She was burning up with fever, her skin slick with sweat despite the trembling. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. "3 days," the girl whispered. "Maybe 4. She stopped eating 2 days ago, stopped drinking yesterday. She told me to go find someone good, someone who would help us." Tears pricked his eyes, but he forced them back. Not now. Right now, this woman and child needed him to be strong. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently. "Emma, and that's my mama, Sarah." "Okay, Emma. I'm Steele. I know it's a scary name, but I'm one of the good guys, and I'm going to do everything I can for your mama." He pulled off his leather vest and wrapped it around the woman's frail shoulders. "Sarah, can you hear me? I need you to stay with me. Your daughter needs you. Can you fight a little longer?" The woman's eyes found his, and in that moment, he saw everything. The shame, the desperate love, the exhaustion, and underneath, a flicker of hope. He made a decision. Time was a luxury this woman didn't have. "Emma, I'm going to carry your mama out of here. Stay close to me. Don't let go of my belt." The child nodded, her jaw set with determination. The biker slid his arms beneath the woman's body. When he lifted her, the shock of how light she was hit him hard. She weighed almost nothing. Her head lolled against his chest, and he could feel every labored breath. "I've got you, Sarah," he murmured. "Your daughter didn't give up on you, and neither am I. Emma, grab my belt and don't let go." The child's fist clenched his belt, and together they began the journey back. The biker moved as quickly as he dared. His arms ached, but pain was temporary. This woman's life hung by a thread. He pulled out his phone and called his club brother. "Danny, Oak Street and Morrison now. Emergency, bring my truck." "What's going on, brother?" "No time, just get here. 5 minutes." The minutes until his friend arrived felt like hours. The biker stood on the corner, the woman in his arms, the child pressed against his side. Cars passed by, people walked past, most not even glancing their way. He wondered how many times they'd been invisible before tonight. How many people had walked past this alley, past this suffering, and simply looked away. Danny's truck screeched to a halt. The biker climbed into the back seat, the woman cradled in his lap. Emma scrambled in beside them. "County General, fast!" Danny's eyes widened at the scene in his rearview mirror, but he didn't ask questions. Brothers didn't need explanations in moments like these. The truck shot forward, weaving through traffic with reckless urgency. In the back seat, the biker held the woman close, feeling every labored breath. Emma sat pressed against his side, her small hand gripping his arm, crying softly. "You're doing great, Sarah," he whispered. "Your daughter needs you. Just hold on a little longer." But the woman's breathing grew more irregular. Her skin felt colder despite the fever. Panic clawed at his throat. "Stay with me," he muttered. "Don't you dare leave that little girl." The hospital's emergency sign appeared like a beacon. Danny swerved into the lot, brakes screeching. Before the truck stopped, the biker was out, the woman in his arms. Emma ran ahead. "Help! We need help!" the child screamed. "My mama!" The doors slid open and the biker charged through into harsh fluorescent light. "I need help!" he roared. "She's not breathing right. She's dying." A nurse looked up, her eyes widening. Then her training kicked in. "Gurney, code blue now." 2 orderlies appeared with a stretcher. The medical team swarmed around the woman. An oxygen mask was placed over her face. IVs were started. The gurney began moving toward the interior. Emma tried to follow, but a nurse held her back. "No, Mama! Mama!" the child screamed, fighting against the hold. The biker dropped to one knee, pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against his chest, sobbing. He held her tight, his own eyes burning as he watched the woman disappear behind swinging doors. "She's going to be okay," he whispered, though he had no idea if it was true. "They're taking care of her now." An older nurse approached with a clipboard. She looked at the biker, at the crying child, and made a decision. "Are you family?" The biker looked down at Emma, clinging to him like he was her only anchor in a storm. He thought about what family meant, about the club brothers who'd become closer than blood, about how sometimes family was the people who showed up when it mattered most. "Yeah, we're family." The nurse's expression softened. "I need information. The child's name is Emma, Emma Rose Mitchell, and the mother is Sarah Mitchell," the biker added. The nurse scribbled notes, then looked at him with respect. "You did the right thing. Another hour and—" She didn't finish. Danny approached, concern etched on his face. "Brother, what do you need?" "Can you stay? Just for a while?" "As long as it takes." Hours crawled by in that waiting room. The biker sat in a plastic chair, Emma curled in his lap, finally asleep from exhaustion. Danny sat nearby, a silent presence of support. The biker stared at the mint green walls, at the slow-moving clock, at the other families waiting for news about their loved ones. A memory surfaced, sharp and painful. He was 8 years old, sitting in a waiting room just like this one, waiting for news about his own mother dying of cancer while his father drank himself numb in the parking lot. Young Marcus had sat alone, terrified, with no one to hold him, no one to tell him it would be okay. His mother had died that night. His father had blamed him, told him he wasn't worth fighting for, that his very existence had been too much burden for a good woman to bear. For years he'd carried that weight, believing he was broken, unworthy of love or softness. He'd run away at 15, lived on the streets, learned to fight, to survive. He'd built walls around his heart, joined the club at 19, earned his patches through loyalty and fists. He'd convinced himself that solitude was strength, that needing no one meant no one could hurt him. But looking down at this child who'd placed her trust in a stranger, who'd refused to give up on her mother, even when all seemed lost, he realized how wrong he'd been. Strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about showing up when someone needed you, even when you were terrified. It was about being the person he'd needed when he was Emma's age. He looked down at Emma and felt something crack inside his chest. This little girl had been braver than he'd ever been. She'd gone into a dangerous world alone, searching for help. She'd trusted him, a complete stranger with tattoos and a road name that sounded like death itself. A tear slipped down his cheek, then another. Years of buried pain flooded out. He bent over Emma and wept silently for the child he'd been, for the mother he'd lost, for all the years he'd believed he wasn't worth saving, for the little girl who might lose her mother just like he had. Please, he whispered to whatever force might be listening, don't take her mother. This kid deserves better. She deserves everything I never had. Danny moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. No words, just presence. That's what brothers did. Footsteps approached. A doctor in blue scrubs knelt in front of them. The biker gently shook Emma awake. Emma, honey, the doctor's here. The girl's eyes snapped open, instantly alert. Mama? The doctor smiled gently. Your mom is very, very sick, but she's stable now. We got her here just in time. Relief washed over the biker so intensely, he felt lightheaded. Emma burst into tears of joy, clutching his shirt. She has a long recovery ahead, the doctor said honestly. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, pneumonia, and a few other complications. But with treatment, with time, yes, she should recover fully. Can I see her? Soon, she's sleeping now. But you can see her soon. You saved her life, young lady. You were very brave. Emma shook her head. Steele saved her. The doctor looked at the biker with newfound respect. You both did. That's what matters. As the doctor left, the biker pulled Emma close. See? Your mom is a fighter, just like you. The child looked up at him with those dark, tear-filled eyes. You saved her. You didn't have to help us, but you did. He shook his head, his throat tight. No, kiddo, you saved her. You were the brave one. You went out into that scary world and found help. That took more courage than anything I've ever done. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she asked the question that broke his heart. What happens now? Where do we go? The question hit him hard. When the mother recovered, where would they go? Back to the streets? Into the system that would separate them? He'd seen it happen before. Good kids torn from parents who loved them but couldn't provide. The foster care lottery that sometimes ended in healing and sometimes ended in more trauma. Something fierce and protective surged inside him. No, he wouldn't let that happen. Not to this child who'd shown more strength and determination than most adults ever would. Not to the mother who'd used her last ounce of energy to send her daughter for help. You're not going back to that alley, he said firmly, and they're not taking you away from your mama. I'll figure something out. I promise you that. Emma studied his face, searching for truth. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded and curled back against his chest. Danny caught his eye, raised an eyebrow. They'd talk later. Right now, the biker had made a promise, and he'd made a career out of keeping his word. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. The biker spent every spare moment at the hospital, adjusting his shifts at the auto shop, calling in favors to rearrange his schedule. Emma had been placed in emergency foster care, but he'd made sure she could visit her mother every day, and he was there for every visit, a familiar face in an uncertain world. The foster family, the Johnsons, were good people, retired teachers who'd seen enough to recognize a child in crisis. They didn't pry, didn't judge, and made sure Emma got to the hospital on time. Mrs. Johnson even packed snacks for the visits, understanding that stress made children hungry. Sarah remained in intensive care for the first week, her body slowly fighting back from the brink. The biker sat by her bedside, sometimes with Emma, sometimes alone. He talked to her even when she couldn't respond, telling her about her daughter's day, how Emma had drawn a picture in art class, how she'd made a new friend at the foster home, how she asked about her mom every single morning. The nurses began to recognize him, their initial wariness softening. One even brought him coffee one particularly long evening. "You're a good man," she said simply. "That little girl is lucky to have you." He didn't feel like a good man. He felt like someone desperately trying not to repeat the failures of his own past. On the fifth day, Sarah woke up. The biker was alone, reading the newspaper aloud. Local news, weather, anything to fill the silence. When he looked up and saw her gaze on him, he froze. "Who?" Her voice was a cracked whisper, barely audible. He moved to her bedside, careful not to startle her. "Easy, you're in the hospital. You're safe. Emma's safe." At her daughter's name, tears filled her eyes, spilling down her gaunt cheeks. "Emma, where is she?" "At school. She's staying with a foster family temporarily, but she's okay. She's been here every day." He paused, his voice gentle. "She found me, led me to you, saved your life." Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming. "My brave girl." "The bravest," he agreed. She walked up to a stranger and refused to take no for an answer. "She fought for you with everything she had." She looked at him again, really seeing him for the first time. At his tattoos, his vest hanging on the chair, the patches that marked him as part of a world most people feared. "Why did you help us?" He was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. "Because someone should have helped me when I was her age, and no one did. Because your daughter looked at me like I was her last hope, and I couldn't walk away. Because—" He trailed off, searching for words. "Because sometimes the universe gives you a chance to be the person you needed when you were small and scared and alone, and you don't waste that chance." Sarah reached out a weak hand, and he took it, careful of the IV. "Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for seeing us. You're visible now," he said quietly, "and you're going to be okay." Over the following weeks, he learned their story in fragments, pieces shared during quiet moments at her bedside. Sarah had been a nursing assistant once, good at her job, proud of her work. But when Emma's father left, the child support disappeared with him. Then came the layoffs, the impossible choice between rent and food, the eviction, the shelter that was full, the car that broke down, the slow descent into homelessness that happened faster than anyone could imagine. She tried everything: temp agencies that wanted an address, jobs that required a car, shelters that separated families. She tried to shield Emma from the worst of it, pretending they were on an adventure, camping out, exploring the city. But adventures end, and reality was cold and hungry and terrifying. "I sent her out that day as a last resort," Sarah confessed one afternoon, tears streaming. "I knew I was dying. I could feel it. And the thought of her being alone, of no one finding her until—" She couldn't finish. "I told her to find someone good, to look for someone with kind eyes. I prayed she'd find someone who would see her, really see her. She has good instincts," the biker said. "She found exactly who she needed to find." As Sarah grew stronger, able to sit up, to take food, to engage with the world again, he saw the fear creeping in when doctors mentioned discharge. Where would they go? What came next? One evening after Emma fell asleep in the chair, exhausted from a day at school followed by hours at the hospital, Sarah pulled him aside into the hallway. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice stronger now but still fragile. But we'll be okay. I'll figure something out. I always do. He looked at her determination, the fierce maternal protection burning despite everything she'd been through, and saw the fear beneath. He thought about his empty apartment, the spare room he'd been using for storage, the life he'd built alone. I have an idea, he said slowly. Hear me out before you say no. She waited, arms crossed defensively. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. The second room is full of junk I don't need. When you're discharged, you and Emma stay with me. Temporarily, he added quickly, seeing her start to protest. Just until you get back on your feet. No strings, no expectations. You heal, you find work, you save money, then you move on to your own place. I can't. Yes, you can. Look, I'm not good with words, but I'm good with action. And the action here is simple. You need a place to recover. Emma needs stability. I have space. It's not charity, it's... He searched for the right word. It's what people do for each other when they can. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us. I know you fought to stay alive for your daughter. I know Emma walked into danger to save you. I know you're both fighters. That's enough for me. She was quiet for a long time, studying him. What if we can't pay you back? Then don't worry about it. But I have a feeling you will, eventually. You're not the type to leave debts unpaid. I'm not, she admitted, but this is too much. It's exactly enough, he countered. Please, let me do this. Let me be the person I needed when I was a kid. The vulnerability in his voice, the raw honesty, seemed to reach her. She wiped her eyes. Okay, but I will pay you back, every cent, and I'll help with everything I can while I'm recovering. Deal. When Sarah was discharged 3 weeks later, the biker was there with Danny's truck. He'd cleaned out his spare room, bought a bed from a secondhand store, hung curtains his club brother's wife had helped him pick out. Other members had donated clothes, toys, books. Word had spread through the club about what Steele was doing, and brotherhood meant showing up. The apartment building wasn't fancy, but it was clean and safe. Emma bounced excitedly as they climbed the stairs. Sarah moved slowly, still weak, one hand on the railing, the other clutching a small bag of belongings the hospital social worker had helped her obtain. He opened the door to his apartment. It was neat in the way of single men who'd been in the military. Spare, functional, a little sterile. But the spare room was different now. A bed with a real mattress, a small dresser, curtains with cheerful flowers, a corner with toys and books for Emma. Sarah stood in the doorway, staring. You did all this? Had help, he admitted. My club brothers. They wanted to contribute. She walked through the apartment slowly, touching things gently as if they might disappear. Emma had already found her corner, exclaiming over a stuffed bear someone had donated. Look, Mama, he has ears that are different colors. Sarah turned to him, tears streaming. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay until you're ready to leave. Say you'll let Emma be a kid for a while. That's all I need to hear. We'll stay, she whispered. Thank you for everything. He showed them how things worked. The quirky lock on the bathroom door, the temperamental stove, the way the hot water took a minute to heat up. Emma explored everything with the enthusiasm of a child who'd been living in an alley, delighted by ordinary things like a working refrigerator and a shower with consistent water pressure. That first night, he ordered pizza. They sat at his small table, the three of them, and ate in comfortable silence broken only by Emma's chatter about her day at the foster home and how happy she was to be with her mom again. Later, after Emma fell asleep in the new bed, Sarah and the biker sat in the living room. She hasn't slept that soundly in months, Sarah said softly. She was always on alert, even in the shelters, always worried. She can rest now, he said. You both can. I start looking for work tomorrow, Sarah declared. I can't just sit here. Take a week, he suggested. Let yourself heal. The jobs will still be there. She looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. 1 week. Then I start applying everywhere. Deal. The first weeks were an adjustment for everyone. The biker, used to living alone, suddenly shared space with an 8-year-old and her recovering mother. He was used to silence, solitude, the freedom to come and go as he pleased. Now there were schedules to coordinate, meals to plan, another person's needs to consider. Sarah insisted on cleaning, even while recovering, determined to contribute something. She'd start slow, organizing a cabinet, then need to rest. But every day she grew stronger, more determined. She made lists, researched jobs, studied bus routes. Emma left toys scattered everywhere, filled the apartment with laughter and endless questions, transformed the sterile space into something alive and warm. She'd follow him around, asking about his motorcycle, his tattoos, his club, his life. He found himself sharing stories he'd never told anyone, edited for a child's ears but honest in their emotional truth. But slowly, carefully, they found a rhythm that felt almost natural. Emma would wake up first, sneaking out to watch cartoons quietly. He'd wake to the sound of her laughter, make coffee, and join her on the couch. Sarah would emerge later, still tired but fighting, and they'd have breakfast together. Sarah started applying for jobs with a determination that inspired him. She faced rejection after rejection, too much time unemployed, no recent references, gaps in her resume that were hard to explain, but she didn't quit. Every morning she'd research more positions, fill out more applications, make more calls. He taught Emma to ride a bike in the parking lot, running beside her as she wobbled and laughed, catching her when she fell. It was awkward at first. He had no idea how to talk to children, how to gauge what was appropriate, how to be the adult presence she needed. But Emma made it easy with her openness and trust. They cooked dinners together, the three of them crowded in his small kitchen, bumping elbows and sharing stories. Sarah taught them recipes her grandmother had made, simple meals with rice and beans and spices that made the apartment smell like home. Emma set the table carefully, proud of her contribution. Some nights after Emma went to bed, he and Sarah would sit on the couch talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her dreams before everything fell apart, about wanting to return to nursing school, about the guilt of not being able to provide for her daughter, about the shame of being invisible on the streets while people walked past. He told her about his own childhood, about the loneliness he'd never admitted to anyone, about the club and how they'd become his family when his blood family had failed him, about how he'd stopped believing good things could happen to people like him. And every morning he woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Emma's cartoons and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. He felt like he belonged somewhere. 3 months later, Sarah landed a job at a medical clinic as a receptionist. It wasn't nursing, but it was a start, a foot back in the door. She cried when she got the call, and the biker found himself crying too, proud in a way he'd never experienced. This woman who'd been at death's door was now rebuilding her life piece by piece with a strength that humbled him. She bought interview clothes from a thrift store with her first small savings, practiced her answers, showed up early to every shift, and worked harder than anyone else. Emma began to thrive in ways that amazed everyone who knew her story. At her new school, she made friends easily, brought home drawings for his fridge, and her teacher called to say how resilient she was. The trauma of those desperate days slowly faded, replaced by the safety of knowing she was protected, that her mom was healthy, that they finally had a home. The club brothers noticed the change in him too. He smiled more, laughed easier, and showed up to rides with stories about Emma's adventures and Sarah's progress. They teased him for going soft, but he could see the respect in their eyes. He'd saved a life. He'd built something real. He'd proven that beneath the leather and tattoos, there was a man capable of immense gentleness. But as Sarah's paycheck started coming in, as she talked about saving for their own place, about not imposing forever, he felt a tightness in his chest. This was the plan, wasn't it? Get them back on their feet and let them move on. Help them achieve independence. So why did the thought of them leaving feel like losing everything that mattered? One Saturday morning, Emma climbed into his lap while he was drinking coffee and watching the news. She'd been quiet lately, more withdrawn. "Steele?" she said softly. "Yeah, kiddo? When we move out, will I still see you?" His heart clenched. "Of course. Anytime you want. Every day? If you want to." "I don't want to move out," she said, her voice small. "I like living with you. I like having breakfast together, And you teaching me bike tricks and the way you read stories with all the different voices. He held her closer, feeling the weight of her trust, her love, her fear of losing another stable thing in her young life. I like those things too. Then why do we have to leave? You don't have to do anything, he said carefully. Your mama's working hard so you guys can have your own place. That's important. But this feels like our place, Emma said. Doesn't it feel like ours to you? Before he could answer, Sarah appeared in the doorway. She'd heard the conversation. Their eyes met over Emma's head. Later that evening, after Emma went to bed, Sarah sat across from him at the kitchen table. She looked nervous, determined, vulnerable. We need to talk about what this is, she said. Emma's getting attached. I'm getting attached. She paused. If this is temporary, if the plan is still for us to move out, I need to prepare her for that. I need to prepare myself. He couldn't meet her eyes. It's not obligation, he said. You don't owe me anything. Then what is it? She asked. Because from where I'm sitting, we've become something. A unit, a family. But I don't know if that's what you want or if you're just too kind to tell us it's time to go. He stood, paced the small kitchen. Years of keeping people at arm's length, of protecting himself from hurt, warred with the truth he'd been denying for weeks. I don't want you to leave, he finally said. I just didn't think you want to stay. Not with someone like me. Someone like you. Sarah stood, moved closer. Someone who risked everything for strangers, who opened his home, who taught my daughter to ride a bike and makes her laugh every day, who gave me a reason to fight when I was ready to give up. She stepped right up to him. You're exactly the father Emma needs. You're the man I never thought I'd find. The kind who shows up, the kind who stays. He looked down at her. This woman who'd survived the unsurvivable, who'd fought her way back from death. I love you, he said, the words rough but honest. Both of you. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but I love you. I love you too. Emma's voice came from the hallway. They turned to see her standing there in her pajamas, grinning. I was listening. Are you guys going to kiss? Does this mean we're staying forever? Sarah looked at the biker, her eyes shining. What do you think? Should we stay forever? He pulled them both into his arms, Emma between them. Yeah, kiddo. Forever. Emma shrieked with joy, jumping up and down. We're a real family now. Can I call you Dad? The word hit him like a physical force. Dad, a title he'd never thought he'd earn, never thought he deserved. If you want to, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I'd be honored. And in that moment, he understood. Family wasn't about blood. It wasn't about shared DNA or legal documents. It was about choosing each other every single day. It was about showing up when things were hard. It was about love that was earned and given freely. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep from excitement, he and Sarah sat in quiet closeness on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. I never thought I'd feel safe again, she whispered, or that Emma would have this. A home, a father who loves her, a future that doesn't terrify me. I never thought I'd feel whole, he said. I didn't know what I was missing until you both showed up. I was just going through the motions, surviving but not really living. She looked up at him. We saved each other, didn't we? Yeah, he said softly. We did. The little girl who had once followed a stranger out of desperation had found a family. The mother who'd prayed her daughter would survive finally had an answer. And the biker who believed he was unworthy of love discovered the truth. That sometimes the smallest, most desperate cry for help leads to the biggest miracle. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were home. 6 months later, he stood in a courthouse, Sarah beside him in a simple dress, Emma bouncing with excitement in her new shoes. The judge smiled down at them. Mr. Harrison, you understand the responsibilities you're taking on with this adoption? Yes, Your Honor, I understand completely. And Emma, do you want Mr. Harrison to be your legal father? Yes, Emma practically shouted. His name is Steele, but it should be Hero because that's what he is. The courtroom erupted in gentle laughter. The judge signed the papers, and just like that, Emma Rose Chen became Emma Rose Harrison. Sarah kept her name they'd decided, but they were family in every way that mattered. The club threw a party at the clubhouse, decorating with balloons and streamers that would have seemed absurd in that rough space if not for the genuine joy on every scarred and tattooed face. Emma ran between the bikers, collecting stories and hugs, treating them all like the uncles they'd become. Danny pulled him aside. Never thought I'd see the day Steele went domestic. Neither did I. You look happy, brother. Really happy, like the weight you've been carrying all these years finally lifted. Steele looked across the room at Emma showing off her adoption certificate to anyone who would look, at Sarah laughing with some of the club wives, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. I didn't know what happy felt like until now. Didn't think I deserved it. Everyone deserves it, brother. You just had to be brave enough to accept it when it showed up. That night, back at the apartment, their apartment now legally and emotionally, Emma insisted on a family meeting at the kitchen table. She had papers and crayons spread out, her face serious. Now that we're official, she announced, we need family rules and family traditions. Steele and Sarah exchanged amused glances. Okay, he said. What did you have in mind? First, pancakes every Sunday, with chocolate chips. That's non-negotiable. Done, Sarah agreed. Second, we have to say I love you before bed every night, even if we're mad. Especially if we're mad, Steele added, and Emma nodded approvingly. Third, we have to have adventure days, where we go somewhere new and explore, like a real family. I think we can manage that, Steele said, his throat tight. This child who'd known such instability now craved structure, tradition, the predictable rhythms of family life. Emma continued with her list. Movie nights on Fridays, helping with dinner, reading together, birthdays being a big deal. Each item was a small brick building, the foundation of the life she'd always wanted. When she finished, she looked at them both. And one more thing. We have to promise that no matter what happens, we stick together, because that's what families do. Steele reached across the table, taking both their hands. No matter what happens, we stick together. I promise. I promise, Sarah echoed. I promise too, Emma said solemnly. We're the Harrison family now, forever and ever. The first year flew by in a blur of ordinary miracles. Emma lost her first tooth and left it for the tooth fairy, shrieking with delight when she found $5 under her pillow. Sarah enrolled in nursing school part-time, determined to finish what she'd started years ago. Steele taught Emma to change a tire, to throw a proper punch, to stand up for herself and others who couldn't stand up for themselves. They had their struggles too. Emma had nightmares sometimes, waking up terrified they'd be back on the streets. Sarah dealt with PTSD from their time homeless, panic attacks triggered by unexpected things, sirens, the smell of garbage, seeing people sleeping rough. Steele learned patience he never knew he had, how to comfort without fixing, how to be present in pain. They went to therapy, individually and as a family. It wasn't easy confronting the trauma they'd all carried, but they did it together, learning healthy ways to communicate, to process, to heal. Sarah graduated from nursing school 2 years later, top of her class. Steele and Emma sat in the front row, cheering louder than anyone when her name was called. She'd done it, rebuilt her life from nothing, fought through every obstacle, and emerged stronger. The night of her graduation, after Emma went to bed, Sarah and Steele sat on their balcony, looking out at the city lights. You know what I think about sometimes? Sarah said. That day in the alley, how close we came to a completely different ending. Don't, he said, but she shook her head. No, I need to say this. I was ready to die that day. I'd accepted it. My only hope was that Emma would find help, that someone would take care of her after I was gone. She turned to him. And then you showed up. You didn't just save my life. You gave us both a future I couldn't even dream of anymore. Emma saved you, he said. I just drove. No, Sarah said firmly. You chose to see us. You chose to help. You chose to open your home and your heart to two strangers. You chose to become a father, a partner, a family. Those were all choices you made every single day. He was quiet, processing. I got more out of it than you did. Before you two, I was just existing, going through the motions. Now I have purpose. I have people I'd die for, People I wake up wanting to make smile. That's not sacrifice. That's the greatest gift of my life. She leaned against him. Then we saved each other, all three of us. Emma started middle school, navigating the complicated social dynamics with the resilience she'd learned from surviving much harder things. She joined the art club, made a diverse group of friends, and shocked everyone by trying out for the basketball team and making it. Steele went to every game, the only biker dad in the stands, cheering louder than all the other parents combined. Emma would look up into the bleachers, find him, and grin. That was worth everything. One evening, 5 years after that fateful night in the alley, Emma, now 13 and suddenly looking more like a young woman than a child, asked to talk to them both. They sat in the living room, and Steele felt a familiar nervousness. Teenagers brought new challenges, and he was flying blind. "I've been thinking about my story," Emma said carefully, "about what happened to us, and I want to share it." "Share it how?" Sarah asked. "My English teacher assigned a personal narrative essay, and I want to write about us, about how we became a family." She looked between them. "But I wanted to ask first, because it's your story too." Steele and Sarah exchanged glances. They'd always been open with Emma about their past, age-appropriately honest about the hard times. She knew where she came from, what they'd survived. "Why do you want to share it?" Steele asked. Emma considered the question seriously. "Because I think there are other kids out there who feel invisible, who feel like nobody cares, and I want them to know that sometimes help comes from unexpected places, that being brave enough to ask for help isn't weakness, it's strength, and that families come in all different forms." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You can share our story, baby. I'm proud that you want to." "Just one request," Steele added. "Keep my road name out of it. I have a reputation to maintain." But he was smiling. Emma's essay won a school award, then a district award, then was published in a local magazine. The story of a little girl who saved her mother by finding a biker with a scary name and a kind heart resonated with people who'd felt invisible, who'd needed help, who'd found family in unexpected places. They got letters, hundreds of them, from social workers, from former foster kids, from people who'd experienced homelessness, from others who'd opened their homes to strangers in need. Each one a reminder that their story wasn't unique in its pain, but was inspiring in its outcome. Steele, who'd spent most of his life trying to be invisible, suddenly found himself speaking at fundraisers for homeless families, at the club organizing donation drives, becoming an advocate for the people society overlooked. It was uncomfortable, being visible, being vulnerable, but it was also important. Emma turned 16, got her driver's license, started thinking about college. Sarah became a registered nurse, then specialized in community health, working with homeless populations. She knew that world intimately and brought both professional skill and personal empathy to her work. Steele watched them both flourish and felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for what they'd become, but for what they'd given him, a chance to be more than his past, more than his road name, more than the broken kid who'd never been saved. One Sunday morning, 8 years after that night in the alley, they sat around the table eating pancakes with chocolate chips. It was their tradition, sacred and silly and perfect. "I got accepted," Emma said suddenly. They both looked up. "Accepted where?" Sarah asked. "University of California, full scholarship, social work program." Steele felt pride surge through him, so strong it almost hurt. "Kiddo, that's amazing." "I want to help kids like I was," Emma said. "I want to be the person who shows up, like you showed up for me." "You're going to change lives," Sarah said, wiping tears. "You already have." Emma looked between them, these two people who'd fought so hard to build something beautiful from broken pieces. "I couldn't have done any of it without you two. You know that, right? You gave me the foundation to build dreams on." That night, after Emma went to her room to celebrate with friends, Steele and Sarah sat on their balcony, the same balcony where they'd had so many important conversations over the years. "She's leaving soon," Sarah said quietly. "Off to college, to her own life." "That's what we prepared her for," Steele said. "To be strong enough to leave, confident enough to fly." "I know. I'm proud. I'm going to miss her. She'll be back, And she'll call constantly. You know, Emma. Sarah laughed. True. She was quiet for a moment. Do you ever think about that night? About what would have happened if you just kept driving? Every day, he admitted. And every day I'm grateful I stopped. That Emma was brave enough to approach a stranger. That you were strong enough to fight. That somehow, against all odds, we found each other. Do you have any regrets? He thought about it seriously. His life had changed completely that night. The solitude, the simplicity, the walls he'd built around his heart, all of it torn down by a desperate child and her dying mother. Not a single one, he said finally. You two are the best thing that ever happened to me. The only thing that makes sense when I look back at my life. Everything before you was just preparation for the moment. Emma grabbed my hand and said, please help. Sarah took his hand now, years later, both of them with some gray in their hair, both of them marked by time and joy and hard-won peace. I love you, Marcus Harrison. He smiled. She only used his real name during important moments. I love you, Sarah Mitchell. Harrison, she corrected. I've been thinking about that. If the offer still stands. He turned to her, heart pounding. Are you saying? I'm saying that Emma isn't the only one who wants to make it official. I'm saying that I want to share your name, your life, everything. I'm saying marry me, Steele. Make me officially part of this family in every way. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, felt tears he wasn't ashamed of anymore. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They married quietly 3 months later, just family and close friends. Emma stood as Sarah's maid of honor, Danny as Steele's best man. The ceremony was short, the vows simple but heartfelt, the celebration afterward loud and joyful, and everything a wedding should be. On their wedding night, after the party ended and Emma had left with friends, Steele and Sarah sat in their living room. The same living room where Emma had once slept in his arms after a nightmare, where they'd had family meetings and movie nights and built a life together. We made it, Sarah said softly. Against all odds, through everything, we made it. We did, he agreed. The three of us together. You know what the best part is, Sarah asked? It's not that you saved us. It's not that we survived. It's that we built something beautiful. We took all that pain and fear and desperation and transformed it into love and safety and family. She was right. That was the real miracle. Not the rescue, but what came after. The choice to stay, to build, to love, to create something permanent and good from a moment of crisis. Years later, when Emma graduated from her master's program in social work, she gave a speech at the ceremony. Steele and Sarah sat in the audience, holding hands, both crying before she even started speaking. I was 8 years old, Emma began, when I learned what real courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. My mother was dying, and she sent me out into a dangerous world to find help. I was terrified, but I was more terrified of losing her. She paused, finding them in the crowd. I found help in an unexpected form. A man who looked scary, but had the kindest heart I've ever known. A man who chose to see us when the world had looked away. Who chose to help when walking away would have been easier. Who chose to love when he believed he wasn't capable of it. My parents taught me that family is built, not born. That love is a verb, not just a feeling. That everyone deserves dignity, safety, and the chance to rebuild. These lessons shaped who I became and why I'm standing here today. So to everyone graduating, I challenge you. Be the person who stops, who sees, who helps. Be the person who believes people deserve a second chance, a safe place, a new beginning. Because that's what changes the world. One choice, one act of courage, one family at a time. The audience erupted in applause. Steele stood, cheering loudly, not caring who heard or what they thought. That was his daughter up there, the little girl who'd grabbed his hand in desperation, now a woman about to change the world. After the ceremony, the three of them stood together, diplomas and memories and hopes surrounding them. I'm opening a nonprofit, Emma announced, for homeless families, specifically for keeping kids with their parents while providing resources. No more separation, no more losing each other. That's ambitious, Sarah said carefully. I know, but I also know it's possible, because I lived it. I know what works. She looked at Steele. And I was hoping my dad might help. Maybe be on the board? Use his connections in the community? Steele felt his throat tighten. Even after all these years, hearing her call him dad never got old. I'm in. Whatever you need. The club too, he added. They've been looking for a cause to get behind. This is it. And so the story continued. Emma's nonprofit grew, helping dozens of families, then hundreds. Sarah worked as their medical consultant, providing healthcare navigation for families in crisis. Steele became the unlikely face of the organization, speaking at fundraisers, bringing his club brothers in to volunteer, breaking down stereotypes about who helps and who needs help. They created a model that other cities started copying, keeping families together while addressing root causes of homelessness. It wasn't perfect, but it worked more often than it didn't. Lives were changed. Families were preserved. Children stayed with parents who loved them. 10 years after Emma's graduation, they opened the Harrison Family Resource Center, a building funded by grants and donations where homeless families could access everything they needed in one place: healthcare, job training, childcare, temporary housing, mental health services, and most importantly, dignity. At the ribbon cutting, Emma invited her parents to speak. Sarah went first, talking about her own experience, about the shame of homelessness, about the determination to protect your child even when you can't protect yourself. Then Steele stepped up to the microphone. This rough biker in his 60s now, patches on his vest, gray in his beard, but eyes that still held the same fierce protectiveness he'd had that night in the alley. 15 years ago, he began, a little girl changed my life. She was brave when she had every reason to be terrified. She refused to give up on her mother when giving up would have been understandable. She looked at a stranger and saw hope. That little girl taught me that courage comes in small packages, that family is built through choice and commitment, that love is the most powerful force for change in this world. This center exists because Emma existed, because Sarah fought to survive, because sometimes one moment of choosing to help instead of walking away can ripple out and change hundreds of lives. He looked at Emma, standing proud beside the center that bore their family name. I thought I was saving them that night, but the truth is they saved me. They gave me purpose, family, love. They made me want to be better than I believed I could be. So this center isn't just for the families who will walk through these doors. It's for everyone who's ever felt invisible, everyone who's ever needed someone to see them, to help them, to believe in them. This is our promise. You are visible, you matter, and you deserve a fighting chance. The crowd erupted in applause. Sarah wrapped her arm around his waist. Emma wiped tears from her eyes, and Steele felt complete in a way he never had before he'd met them. That evening, back at their house, they'd eventually upgraded from the apartment. The three of them sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. You know what I think about sometimes, Emma said. She was 30 now, engaged to a teacher she'd met during volunteer work, planning her own family. What's that? Kiddo? How many times the universe had to align perfectly for our story to happen? You had to be at that exact corner at that exact time. I had to be brave enough to approach you. Mom had to hold on long enough. Any one of those things goes differently and... She trailed off. Don't think about that, Sarah said. We're here. That's what matters. I know, I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the hard parts, because they led to this. Steele pulled them both close. Me too. Every single day. They sat in comfortable silence. Three people who'd found each other in the darkest moment and built something luminous. Three people who'd proven that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, about showing up, about love that refuses to quit even when everything seems impossible. Years later, when Steele was 70 and Emma brought her daughter, his granddaughter, to visit, the little girl climbed into his lap and asked, Grandpa, how did you and Grandma and Mom become a family? He looked at Sarah, at Emma, at this new generation that would never know the desperation that had brought them together. And he smiled. Well, little one, it starts with a very brave girl who refused to give up. A girl who taught me that the scariest thing you can do is ask for help, and the bravest thing you can do is offer it. Tell me the story, she demanded, and so he did. He told her about a sunset evening, a small girl with tears in her eyes, an alley that held more than darkness. He told her about courage and love and family. He told her the truth, that sometimes the hardest days lead to the best lives if you're brave enough to keep going. Emma listened, even though she'd heard it 1,000 times. Sarah held his hand, even though she'd lived it, and the little girl in his lap absorbed every word, learning the family legend, not of perfection, but of perseverance, because that was the real story. Not that a biker saved a family, but that a family saved each other day after day, choice after choice, moment after moment. If this story moved you, please subscribe so we can continue sharing more like it. And let us know where you're watching from. It's always inspiring to see how far these stories go.